accountability. How does this, how are Nigerians supposed to perceive the presidency from this statement? How do you think this will actually affect Nigerians?
You are guilty. Yeah, you are guilty.
Because so, if it's in a situation where we know the family is owing a particular family, right? And before you collected that loan, there was supposed to be plans on ground. So it seemed like you actually had plans, or told us you had plans on ground to make use of that loan. And definitely those plans should have yielded what would help us pay back. And now we had all of that in mind, even though we've been complaining that debt is much in Nigeria. And then now the president comes out and says, please forgive us. What exactly does that imply?
That's what I have said earlier, that he has realized that the indebtedness of our country, Nigeria.
I heard that part, and I heard when you said that.
He has also tried to inform the public. Apology means, forgiveness means, I am guilty, I am wrong. We have mismanaged the resources that we borrowed. The money we borrowed from you people have not yielded any positive interest or impact on our nation. So the money is a complete waste and shamble. So
that's what you're saying now, that the monies that we borrowed have been mismanaged and they are wasted and shambled.
That is the impression that they are given. Because if I say, forgive me, it means I have accepted that I am wrong. Now that's why I'm coming with the second phase. There is need for accountability. There is need for Nigerians and the international community to know how this money has been used, and it has led to the point of not seeing any result out of it. Because you cannot just, I can't just give you money and you come back tomorrow and tell me, please forgive me, the money I borrowed from you is now affecting my development, is affecting my life, I cannot make progress anymore, people around me are crying, family is suffering because of the debt that I'm owing you. You know, it does not really make sense. You should be telling me that, yes, you know, I borrowed this money for so-so project, for so-so business, and I'm able to invest in it, but unfortunately it failed. But this is the evidences of that failure. It makes you more, you know, responsible. It makes you more truthful and more, you know, matured in your business transaction. Because the person you are talking to is not a dumb, is not a fool. So I believe that in as much as I appreciate and support that our indebtedness should be forgiven, but to also put us in the right track of righteousness, the right track of truthfulness and sincerity, there should be an accountability statement of what we have used that money for. And that calls for the issue of, you know, I don't want to say corruption. That's why I just say accountability, because I would not want to know whether if somebody has embezzled money or in one way or the other siphon or mismanage our resources. So that's why I'm talking about accountability. Nigerians and the international community would be expecting the accountability of this indebtedness, this money that you have borrowed and you're asking us to forgive. There should be a clear statement. There should be a clear facts with evidences of how this money was not able to yield the desired interest. Not that this money has been shared or is in some people's bank account or pocket or in their houses, and then you are now coming to just say, we are sorry, forgive us. No. If this indebtedness started from either Obasanjo's tenure or His Excellency Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, or His Excellency Goodluck Jonathan, or His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, or it just started as Tinubu took over, let us have these accountability documents. And I think it will put us in a very good light. Because tomorrow, if we forgive you, if they forgive us, would they be foolish again to give us money?
Remember that we just talked about, was it the other day when we talked about the loan that we're preparing to receive from the World Bank? That's 1.7 and thereabouts. Now that is another loan that we're expecting to receive, that we're expecting from the World Bank, right? And then from your earlier analysis, you started by saying that you appreciate the fact that the president has realized that the indebtedness is affecting our economy and is not beneficial to us. Now, does that, having that statement and the money we are still expecting, another loan that we are still expecting from World Bank, how can you put that on a scale?
Well, those who wants to give them money should be able to understand the sincerity and the truthfulness of the get this loan. And if it is a financial institution, the World Bank, so they have already got a plan of payback. Most times this indebtedness that has to do with financial institutions, especially the are usually paid most times because there is an arrangement for the payment. If a state government is going to borrow money, sometimes it's okay from our IGRO, this is how much that will be going to service this loan every month. Same with the federal government, maybe with our crude or from these particular sources. But that is not the bone of contention here. The bone of contention, like I said last time, that we do not really need this new borrowing. Because to just agree with what we discussed last time, if the former one we have borrowed has led us to the public shame and public domain asking for forgiveness of how we have usurped the money we borrowed, for how we have shown ourselves to be incompetent managing the resources that we borrowed. Believe you me, if it was a citizen of Nigeria that borrowed money from government and could not pay, his property would have been confiscated. Believe you me, by this time, EFCC would have muzzled that person. By this time, in DSS custody. But because it has to do with those who are untouchable, then we should just ask for forgiveness. So I want to say that if the international community is going to forgive Nigeria for the indebtedness, everybody who have looted money from Nigeria economy and government should be forgiven.
Everyone who has looted money or everyone who has borrowed
money, who have borrowed money, the money that you can't account for is looted. Whether you borrow, you borrowed and now you are saying forgive us. So what did you do with the money?
Ambassador, from your earlier statement, you said this was commendable, and I'm trying to see how you're saying it's a public shame.
No, I commend it because, when you
commend a public shame.
When you sin and you come out to say, please forgive me.
It's that action you called a public shame, and it showed that we're not accountable for our money, for the monies that we collected.
Yes, of course. If I have committed an offense, and I come out in the public to say, please forgive me, it's commendable. Not everybody will want to publicly say, I am sorry. So that's why I commended the president and the federal government for publicly saying, forgive us of our indebtedness.
What did you call the public shame now?
It's a public shame because we are not able to manage the resources we borrowed. So it puts us in a very bad light. So that's why I said for us to be in a very good light, there should be accountability statement of how this money we borrowed could not yield the desired result. And if the international community forgive us as a nation, I want to also plead with Mr. President that everyone who have looted Nigerian money and also could not pay back should be forgiven. Every cases of corruption with EFCC and the court.
You know that's not possible, right?
No. You see, I'm only trying to say that if the president will not call for accountability from those who these resources were given to, because this money was not given to a spirit. This money that was borrowed was given to human beings. And if Mr. President could not call these people for accountability, then I'm also saying that those who have been alleged or to have stolen or to have looted our national resources with EFCC, with DSS, should be granted pardon. That's my plea. But if Mr. President will call for accountability, then I encourage that, yes, forgive us our indebtedness, and then also we are going to do something to recover these resources so that our image at the international community will not be seen as people who cannot do business, who cannot be trusted with resources. So I think the implication of this plea is very, very important. So accountability is important.
All right, thank you so much, Ambassador Eki. Let's look at our next story now. The House of Representatives has rejected a proposal for a 300 billion naira grant from the federal government aimed at addressing the humanitarian crisis in Borno following severe flooding in Maiduguri. The flooding caused by the collapse of the Lao Dam resulted in over 40 fatalities and significant damage to public institutions, including the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital. During Wednesday's plenary, Amos Magaji highlighted the flooding's devastating impact on homes, markets, and health facilities, emphasizing the extensive damage to the cancer center, which disrupted vital services. Inuwa Garba proposed the 300 billion naira grant, but the House voted against it, opting instead to encourage the federal government to provide support without specifying an amount. Okay. Lawmakers argue that existing donations have already amounted to billions of naira. So what? While some members acknowledge the contributions made, they stress the need for more serious intervention to address the extensive damage. The House called on the federal government to attend to the needs of the affected institutions and ensure compliance with necessary renovations. All right, so reps have rejected the federal government's 300 billion naira grant for flood victims, and you already heard the argument. Some people on this side saying, hey, monies have been released that are up to billions of naira, and now you're saying another 300 billion naira. And then some other House of Reps members were saying, I think we should actually release more funds. Ambassador, what are your thoughts?
Well, I want to believe that the federal government, I don't know which office must have written to the National Assembly. If it is the office of the president, maybe the president should have done that or shall have done that with a political mindset, so that it will not look as if tomorrow during the next election the people of Borno will say that one of our brother requested that 300 billion naira should be given to us as a grant, that you refused. And so Mr. President have said, okay, let me write to the National Assembly if he's the one that actually do. I don't think Mr. President, in his understanding about what it takes, you know, to intervene in this kind of situation, will just say, let me apply for 300 billion naira grant for the people of Borno State, knowing that other states will also be affected by this flood. So if you give Borno 300 billion, apart from the one that we have given before, then it is obvious that every state that this flood will affect will receive 300 billion, the way Nigeria works. And the big question is, where is this money? Is this money available to be given, or is just that let us make a request? You know, so I want to believe that as we condole with the people of Borno State, a little patience, let this thing get dried off, and then let us look at the study of the losses, the damages, and then like the lawmakers said, that the government should look at the areas of intervention, the renovations, and then see how not to tag a particular amount of money, because that may not be very helpful now. 300 billion naira may even be too small to alleviate the damages that has been caused by the...
In addition to all of the monies that have already been received.
It may be too small, you know, it may also be too big. So I want to go with the National Assembly that let us look at the areas that the flood have damaged. Let us, you know, intervene in the renovations. In areas that we need to intervene, let us intervene as a country, aside from the ones that we have. So they have equally said, let continuous intervention, you know, be there. They have not said we are not doing anything anymore. So which is more wiser? And I want to encourage that whosoever that is requesting for these resources should understand that the president have just asked for debt forgiveness, and you are not trying to encourage Nigeria to go and borrow more money. So I think let us be fair to one another. we condemn and we are being in touch, condoling with the people of the Borno State, but that does not mean that people should now use it as an advantage for their political advancement or for economic advancement, because sometimes people just want to make a point so that to look as if, oh, I asked the federal government for 300 billion naira to help our state. They did not give us. Now they are coming to ask for our vote. We will not vote for them. So let us not play politics. But how do we,
yes, exactly. How do we prevent that from happening? How do we avoid a case where people would start, you know, getting political about the whole situation? Because monies have been released. A lot of money that putting it all together now, I don't think we can put it all together here right now. But we've heard cases of individuals, the federal government, and other state governors who have supported that particular state and humans. Now, the truth is, having that in mind now, how can we prevent people from siphoning these funds, making it all political, and getting these funds to the actual people that need it? Because the other day we heard about, on Saturday to be precise, we heard about a protest that these guys were saying they're not receiving enough care.
You see, that's why I have advocated, and thank God some state government, for instance, Rivers State government, they have inaugurated a flood management committee, which is commendable. Like I said, don't wait for this flood to come. Let's be proactive. You know, so if we are proactive, the issue of mismanaging relief funds will a little bit be prevented. I want to think that if these resources, like I mentioned all the time, that most times committee that are set up to manage these flooding system, flood issues, some of them may even be living in Abuja. Some may be living in Kefi. Some may be living in Kaduna. Some may even be in America. They are just in that committee because the governor wants to compensate them. Because the governor feels that, oh, this man have written a beautiful article on flood, let him be part of the committee. No. People who are not victims of these things may not know how it works. Like I condemned last time somebody saying that they should go to higher ground, that the flood will not affect them, it will be released little by little, because you live in Abuja and you don't know the effect of flood. You know, so I want to think that one of the ways we can prevent these things is for the governor to be intentional, not just setting up a committee and then you wait for reports. You should get the reports from the field while you wait for the official report from your committee. It makes you more proactive and more, you know, reasonable.
So you're saying the governor should actually go to the field?
Of course.
Around the states?
Of course. Your citizens are being affected. That's the reason why you are governor. Are you a governor to sit at government house? When your people are affected, you go to where the challenge is with them. So I don't think there is not anything wrong. Setting up a committee for flood in Borno, I also want to feel that at this point, the federal government and whosoever that have donated money to the Borno state government should be asking for accountability. At this point, that's one way we can checkmate, you know, the excesses and the wastage. Because if people are protesting, it means that those resources are not evenly.
Yes, it begs a big question. Where's all the money going?
Yes, so that's why nobody should go and ask federal government for any money for now from Borno State. At this moment, the Borno State government and whosoever that is saddled with the responsibility of taking care of these flood victims should be called for accountability. Let us know what you have used the one we have given first.
You think they will not be able to give account?
Even if they are lying, or I believe that they will say the truth. But if they give their reports, there is also need to investigation. Because they gave a report doesn't mean that you cannot find out the report. Why they give you a report is for you to go and find out, right? So I think that we should be asking for accountability. The Borno State governor, and I know is a responsible man, you know, he will be able to come out and tell the public that thank you, Nigerians, thank you, the federal government, thank you, my state governors that have supported me, philanthropists that have supported us. We have so far received so billions of naira, and we are so far have done this and that. But there are this and that is needed again that will worth so amount of money. Then we know that you have done well. But if you have not known what you have done with what you have received so far, don't ask for further money. And if the people of Borno State are getting no more help, know that your government have not done well in accountability.
So they should hold their government responsible.
Yeah, of course, yes.
All right, that's it on Borno State. We hope that help will definitely get to them, because this is not a very good time for that particular state. Now let's move on to the petroleum industry. Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, talking about Pengasen, has called on the federal government to raise its stake in Dangote refinery from 7% to 45%. Pengasen President Festus Osifo made the recommendations at the 3rd Pengasen Energy and Labour Summit in Lagos, urging the refinery to adopt the Nigerian liquefied natural gas model for energy security and local demand. Osifo also stressed the need for to operationalize Nigeria's 4 refineries, proposing the government divest 51% to core investors. Pengasen has urged the rehabilitation of petroleum depots and pipeline to ease product distribution and reduce road damage caused by trucks. The union further calls for digital solution to address crude oil theft and stricter penalties for offenders. They highlighted the delay in implementing parts of the Petroleum Industry Act. They highlighted, it seems that they just highlighted all of the issues going on in the petroleum industry, from implementing the PIA to the roads that need to be functional for trucks to move past with petroleum products, down to the refineries that are not functional, down to us increasing our stake in the Dangote refinery. You know, at first we were told it was 20%. And then later Dangote came out and said, nah, that is not it. And then, oh, there was an explanation. Okay, this is what we did. We had to take some of the money to invest in gas instead of investing all of them in the refinery. But let's start from the very first statement about the increasing our stake from 7% to 45%.
Well, I want to thank Pengasen leadership president. Our brother Comrade Osifo is one of the comrades that is leading the unions, among the unions in Nigeria that have, you know, proven to be a very responsible and proactive leader. I want to say you have done it again. It's commendable. They are not always on the streets trying to protest and trying to cause strike, but they have always contributed, giving federal government solutions to most of the challenges. And I think it's a patriotic actions, not a destructive actions that you see some union leaders, all the way to calculate is protest. Protest is not the solution to our problem. We need proactive leaders, leaders that will contribute. You know, when you hear them talk, it's meaningful. It means that they don't want crisis, but they just want the nation to move ahead and make progress. Now, on the issue of increasing our stake, I've always said that it looks as if the contracts or the agreement between Dangote group of company in the area of refinery and the federal government through our NNPCL was not well defined. I have always stated this because of the information surrounding the price of the PMS. Because if the contract between Aliko Dangote Group and the federal government through the NNPCL was well defined, I do not think that most of the crises, the issues we are having right now, we will have them. And I also believe that the Pengasen knew that the federal government can increase their stake.
Is it a problem of it not being well defined or it not being well communicated to Nigerians?
No. You see, for them to say it should be increased, they are aware They are well informed. That's their industry.
No, that's on the second statement. You made two statements, and I'm hinging on the first one, where you said that the agreement probably was not well defined. That's what I'm saying. Do you think it's actually a case of it not being well defined? How would the both parties sign agreements that's not well defined? Or is it a case of Nigerians not being well informed about what the agreement actually entails? Because each time we keep hearing different statements from both parties.
That's why I said it wasn't well defined. Because if it was well defined, NNPCL will not come out and say a different thing. Dangote Group will not come out and say a different thing.
But have you noticed that sometimes when NNPCL comes and makes a statement and then Dangote makes another statement, when NNPCL comes back for a reply, they are explaining why Dangote's statement was true. So you'd ask a question. So if this Dangote statement is true, I'm making reference to the percentage now. We're told 20% from the very beginning. And then Dangote comes out and says it's not even up to that. And then they come out to explain why it's not up to that. So why did you tell us it was 20 in the first place?
You see,
so this is something, it shows that this is something that they both have an understanding of.
No, you see, the truth about is most times we politicize everything, and because of our selfish interests. It's possible that 20% was agreed upon by the Dangote Group, and then the negotiators of this transaction on behalf of the federal government may have gone there to also accommodate their personal interest. That 20% left for the federal government, for the government of Nigeria, have been reduced to say, okay, what's my own stake? The Dangote Group is okay, I take 5%. You take 2%, you take 1%. It happens in most cases. But I'm not saying that that's what has happened. But I want to just lend voice on what Pengasan have just said, that Nigeria as a country, as a government, we need to increase our stake. Now, what is the benefit of increment of our stake? One, it will give us, a great benefit in the issue of negotiating with Aliko Dangote Group. That when it has to do with the PMS, the refinery, we will have a major stake on what should be done and how it should be done, because our stake is very high at that point. But in any case, I do not also want to, while they have seen where it works, they refer to the NLNG that is working, that model is working. And I believe because they are experts in that industry, let Mr. President see how intentionally our stake and the model that the Pengasan president has recommended. Let's see how we can work upon it. And I believe that if it's done, we may get more results. Okay,
so down to the refineries now. The other time we heard about two particular refineries, being up for bid for private individuals to come, and then lease for like 5 years, and then after that we get to see what will come up. But ever since that statement was made, we really haven't heard anything further about those refineries. And now Pengasan are mentioning it again, saying that the refineries should be functional and all of that. So how do you see the functionality of those refineries?
Are you talking about that it's good to lease them or to sell them or to privatize them?
No, I'm asking your thought on it. I'm not giving my thought on it.
You said that.
I'm telling you the previous information we got about the refineries, okay. Right? And now Pengasan has made a statement about the same refineries, and we did not hear them mention anything about that statement of leasing it out for 5 years. And ever since then, we have not heard anything further. But they mentioned the refineries, and they are saying, let's make it functional.
Okay, I think if I understood you clearly, you are trying to say that there was a point government was talking about leasing it. Is that correct? Or it was just a public suggestion?
No, it wasn't a public suggestion.
Okay, the federal government were talking about lease and all of that. Okay. Now, if that's a statement to rely upon, that the federal government is also desiring to either lease the refinery or sublet it or privatize it, well, I think it's okay. But again, it boils down to accountability. Most times when we want to shave those who have looted our funds, we come up with new ideas. There are resources that have been voted to the repairs and maintenance of these refineries we are now talking about leasing. Is that correct? Or being privatized? Are we going to also ask for the accountability of those resources? Why it did not work? Did they actually repair or refurbish or maintain our refinery? So let us not be deceiving the Nigerian masses with new innovations when it has failed. It is obvious that the money that was allocated has been looted or has been stolen or has been diverted, and then we'll come up with another suggestions. So I think it's...
No, definitely, if something is not working, you definitely come up with something new.
I'm subscribing
to...
I'm first of all saying, I'm laying a foundation that let it not just be the issue of lease. It's because we want to cover up the bogus and the huge amount of money allocated for the repairs, for the maintenance of these our three refineries, Kaduna Refinery, Warri Refinery, and Port Harcourt Refinery.
Okay.
But if we have seen that it is not working, number one, we want accountability, that this money was allocated and we have been able to use this money up to this optimal level for the maintenance or repair or refurbishment of these refineries. That makes us a credible government. Number two, hence we have seen that it's not working. If you want to lease it, fine. If you want to privatize it, fine. All we desire is that let it work. But we also know the implication of privatizing it and leasing it. But for the best interest of Nigeria, so that that great national asset that is needful will be functional, let us lease it. But I also want to lend my voice to the Pengassan president that all we desire is that our refineries should work. They have not said that, oh, they are not doing well. They have just said, let us make it work. And which is the interest and the desire of every Nigerian. Anyone that meant well for Nigeria. So let our refineries work. Whichever means it will make it work, let it work.
And then the PI implementation, what do you have to say about
that?
Well,
the PI implementation, I am glad that the Pengassan president, that's why I said I commend him a whole lot, is also taking intentional interest on the host communities where these resources is coming out from. But because if he had just said, let us digitalize, let us deal with the pipeline vendors, let us deal with this, that, I would have challenged him. Because I would have said he is not sensitive.
He doesn't have to say it. It's already happening.
That's what we are saying. He is saying that we need to digitalize, we need to ensure that our pipelines are not vandalized. But he went on to say that the responsibility of the government, which is the PIA bill, right?
The PIA.
Yes, that the resources meant for these communities should be released. That's why I commended him. He was holistic in his presentation. But because if he has not thought that angle that has to do with host communities, I would have said nonsense. But he
even passing the PIB to PIA is already, what I'm trying to say is, don't we need more actions than talks?
That's why I said I commended him. He said release the resources for implementation, right? That's the emphasis. The emphasis is not just about adding more money. The emphasis is now the money that is supposed to be for the development of these host communities should be released, and those projects that are tied to these resources should be implemented. When the people are happy, anything that has to do with petroleum, crude in Nigeria, we can celebrate it. But if the host communities are not happy, we cannot be talking about Nigerians' happiness when the host community that where these things are coming out from are not happy. Because other people in other states, other zones have what is sustaining them. They have what is making them joyful, and they are happily joyful. So the one that host communities from the Niger Delta have, and part of Niger Delta particularly, should be happy. So I want to say,
I'm just wondering how much impact this particular statement would have.
You see, in Nigeria, well, like I said, I have seen most of the things we discuss here, government at state level, like I told you about the flood. We talked about government setting up committee, not waiting till that when flood comes. And I gave instance that Rivers State government have just done that. And I believe that Bayelsa and other states will also do that. You know, so there are things that we have discussed here that I discovered that the federal government and the state government are, you know, being responsive about them. We don't just finish talking here and the information did not get to them. One way or the other, we try to ensure that this information we discuss here gets to leaders in government. And that's why we're also seeing results. So I believe that what the Pengassan president have said, and we are lending voice, will not just end here. Most times when we are on air, some of our leaders, they are in meetings. So that's why most times when we finish, we ensure that we send the messages of our discussions to them so that they can have opportunity to look at it. And they have shown sense of responsiveness.
All right, thank you so much for being optimistic. Now let's move on to our next story. The Federal Executive Council is proposing an amendment to the National Identity Management Commission Act number 23 of 2007 to enable the issuance of national identification numbers to foreigners residing in Nigeria. Additionally, the FEC has introduced the Economic Stabilization Bill, which aims to allow taxation of foreigners living and working in the country. These proposed legislation seek to expand the scope of registrable individuals to include foreign individuals with taxable presence or income in Nigeria. They also mandate the use of NIN for transactions related to tax administrations. A new paragraph of Section 16 proposed that anyone deemed a resident or subject to tax in Nigeria, regardless of citizenship, will be registered and taxed. Mr. Bayo Nanuga, Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, confirmed the proposals during a briefing at the Aso Rock Villa in Abuja, and if enacted, the bill would result in expatriates and income earnings immigrants being taxed in Nigeria. Ambassador.
Well, I believe that expatriates are taxed, and I do not want to claim understanding on the area they are coming from, because we should be emphatic on taxation when you have provided the needful. You cannot go and borrow what is happening in the United States of America to come and implement here when your environment and the way we do things is not like the United States of America. So sometimes some of our leaders, they just read books or travel to a place, and then you feel that what you saw there must be implementable now. What is the foundation you have kept? So if you begin to do things like this state, this country that you are trying to borrow from what happens there, it makes a whole lot of sense. So I want to believe that our economy is already having big problem, showing that we can solve our problems. So if the expatriates are the ones that we need to trust now to come and help us fix our dying economy, let us not come up with bottlenecks that will hinder them from coming. Because it looks as if our economy is dying because we cannot...
Is this tax not going to help the economy if we have everybody resident in Nigeria paying tax, whether they're from Nigeria or not?
Our problem as a nation is not in money. We have money, but the problem is the usage. So every day we wake up with new taxation policies, and we are not asking how impactful is the ones that we have generated first. I'm not against multiple stream. I'm not against new policies of taxation. But my challenge is the accountability. We have got trillions, billions of naira, like our president is now begging for us to be forgiven. We are generating resources every day, every month, as a state, as a country.
So you feel our tax is being misused?
Of course, our taxations are being misused. What is the impact of our tax? What is the impact of the resources that we generate on Nigerians? I told you the other day that most people are not driving not because we don't have fuel. There's no fuel scarcity. What we are suffering right now is scarcity of money, scarcity of funds. People don't have money in their bank account. They don't have money in their pocket. If not, there is fuel all over in Port Harcourt. So our problem is not about the taxation. Our problem is the usage of those resources. So I want to believe that accountability is key. We have been able to generate so trillions of naira this year because of the challenges that we have. We have expended this and that on this area. So we need more multiple streams of income. So that's why we are coming up with this new policy that expatriates should be paying tax or thereabout. But in any case,
not just expatriates, residents of Nigeria,
see,
whether you're a citizen or not.
You cannot be sitting down in Abuja. They said those whose kernel was broken by a benevolent spirit to learn to be what? To learn to be humble. If you are opportune to be in government political position where you are getting millions every month, you are having lights in your house, you have a solar, you have generator, you have the good cars to drive, you can provide for your family what you need, your children are in the schools of your choice. My dear, be calm. You cannot be talking to people who do not know how to eat the next meal, and you are sitting down in Abuja to propose a taxation for all citizens. Are you okay? What job opportunity have you provided for the people you are asking them to pay tax?
But you just said you're not against the taxation.
I said there should be accountability first of all. When you talk about expatriates, there are people that are coming to work in Nigeria where Nigerians don't have work.
Do Nigerians not pay tax in other countries they go to work?
The countries they go to, I'm not against expat paying tax. Because they are coming to Nigeria to work where Nigerians don't have work to do. So the people Nigerian government has given work, given contracts, given opportunity to come here and work, should pay tax. If you go to America, for you to pay tax, you have work, of course. You don't give me any work, then you wake up one morning and come to my house that you want tax. Are you okay? So let us not create activities of, what do you call it, violence among citizens. So that suggestion, if it is a recommendation, should die in your house. Don't bring it to the public domain. Because right now, Nigerians are struggling on how to survive, how to feed, most children have not been able to return back to school because there is no money for school fees. And then all you sit down is to mold brain on how citizens should pay tax because you live in the United States of America and then your children are paying tax.
They're looking for revenue. It's a means of revenue.
It's a stupid suggestion now. It doesn't make any sense.
Let's not use that language now. But then, Ambassador, remember, they're not talking about citizens paying tax. That is already a settled matter. They're talking about foreigners that are living in Nigeria, that they should also pay tax.
No. You see, you talked about cities, including citizens. When I was talking, I didn't say expats shouldn't pay tax. I said expatriates should pay tax because they are coming to Nigeria to work where Nigerians don't have work.
Okay.
The people that have work must pay tax. That's my point. If you don't give somebody work, which tax do you expect him to pay? He can't pay any tax because he has no source of livelihood.
But private individuals, people who have personal businesses, they pay tax.
Of course they do.
Okay. That's not the government giving them a job.
That's what I'm saying now.
Okay.
If you have something, a means of livelihood, a reasonable means of livelihood, should I stop a man that has a family, should he stop to feed his children first and be paying tax? Should he stop to pay his children's school fees when government cannot give him free education and be paying tax to government? Is it not our country? Is anybody a slave or anybody a fugitive here? So if you have the one you have collecting from government, please enjoy it. use it and run our country, while the ones we can generate for ourselves, we use it to run our families.
Ambassador, you're on, I feel like you're on both sides. You are here, you are on the other side. And if I ask you questions from here, you run down here. If I ask you questions from here, you run down here. That looks like what exactly you're doing at the moment.
My point is clear.
You're saying you're not talking against paying tax, but then your explanation when you continue your analysis is sounding like
I'm talking about I laid the foundation of those who should pay tax. I said the people that should pay.
People who the government has given jobs.
Thank you. Pay
what
tax.
About private individuals?
That their business is doing well. Pay tax.
Only when your business is doing well.
Of course. If my business can only provide for my family, I should not be asked to pay tax. Because in the developed countries, government is making sure that every child will go to school. If I don't have a job that is doing well right now, I can access facilities. When I begin to work, I begin to pay. There is provision. A man who have not been able to pay house rent, you are asking him to pay tax. Come on, this is our country. So I think that you should think of elsewhere how to, if you want to generate resources. Don't create avenues for revolt. I'm saying that if I'm not against the taxation. Like I
know
said,
you're not.
Expatriates who are coming to Nigeria to work.
We heard that part.
Pay your tax. Nigerians who don't have good source of income should not be demanding. The government should not ask them to pay tax, because you have failed woefully in your responsibility. They cannot feed their families. They cannot go to school. They don't have good pipeline water. They don't have good power. Why should they pay tax? So the other avenues of wealth that we have as a nation, use it and maintain our country. Why we use the small avenues that we have to survive, we use it to maintain our families.
From your explanation, it's sounding like the government has not done anything that these people are benefiting from.
I want to know the area that I'm benefiting from government. As I speak with you, I have no light in my house. I told you the power holdings said they have stolen something from the transformer. This is 1 month I do not have light. Who should have given me light? The road to my house is not accessible. The water I drink in my compound is personally provided, the borehole. I provided it for myself. Has government provided shelter? I'm living in my own house. So which area has government helped to pay tax? So if you have not helped me in any way, don't ask me for tax.
All right, Ambassador,
I'm speaking for other Nigerians.
Ambassador, let us look at the other part where the government has said that the NIN registration, yes, will be open for everybody, including foreigners.
It's not wrong. The NIN that they are talking about, at least 2,000 naira, 1,000 naira will be generated out of it as a revenue. It's not bad. If it is also a way to use to know a foreigner that is coming into Nigeria, you know, sometimes we make recommendations that seems as if it doesn't make any sense. For somebody to leave, you know, a United States of America to come into Nigeria, he went through embassy screening. So for the person to land in Nigeria, Nigeria authorities is aware that we have gotten so and so person into our country. But if you think that is a way of boosting, increasing our number of users of NIN, is fine. Whatever reason they have, at least it will make the office of NIN also to be busy the more. So it's not a bad thing. So I think they should go ahead and allow foreigners to register with the NIN. It's not a bad thing.
All right, thank you so much, Ambassador. At this point, we'll take some time off. At the conversation will continue. We're going straight to ASU after that.
people of Maiduguri need your help. A catastrophic flood has engulfed the city, leaving over 1 million residents stranded and fighting for survival. Entire communities are submerged, with people trapped inside homes and on rooftops cut off from food, clean drinking water, and essential supplies. Health experts are warning of a potential outbreak of deadly diseases, and medical facilities are out of commission. The situation is dire. Helicopters, boats, and high-riding trucks capable of navigating the treacherous, waterlogged areas are urgently required to reach the countless men, women, and children still awaiting rescue. The Nigerian media is issuing a desperate plea to humanitarian organizations, international actors, and citizens across the nation. Step in now before it's too late. For more information on how you can help, contact Professor Usman A. Tar, the Honorable Commissioner for Information and Internal Security, Borno State, on 0809-233-3955. Every second counts.
This is powered by Atlantic Television Network.
With us, let's delve straight to ASU. The Academic Staff Union of Universities has issued a 14-day ultimatum to the federal government to resolve several ongoing issues, including the renegotiation of the 2009 FGN-ASU agreement that's based on the NIMI-BRICS Committee draft agreement of 2021 and the release of the withheld salaries from the 2022 strike. ASU President Emmanuel Osodoke expressed frustration over the government's lack of commitment, stating that failure to address these issues would lead to a crisis in the public university system. Some of the key demands are the implementation of the 2021 agreement, conclude the renegotiation of the 2009 FGN-ASU agreement, release withheld salaries, and down to yes, after release withheld salaries and funding for public universities, allocate funds for revitalizing public universities as per the 2023 federal budget, earned academic allowances, pay the earned academic allowances included in 2023 federal budget. The union has warned that if these issues are not resolved within the stipulated time frame of 14 days, it will not be responsible for any resultant industrial action. Ambassador, I can't really count how many times we get to talk about ASU every month.
Well, that's why we have the opinion that the public universities should be indirectly given autonomy, so that the vice chancellors and the senates of whichever nomenclature they have in these public universities and polytechnics should be able to manage these universities. You ask me,
yes, what happens to the people who will not be able to afford fees at that time? Because that autonomy will lead to an increase in fees.
Even at this point in time, not all parents are still able to afford the fees.
But now would have less.
In the public.
Now would have more.
For me, you know,
You're trying to educate. Are you trying to like take some people out of school? Well, out of school children are a lot.
You see, when you talk about out of school, I've always told you here that there is really no difference from those who have gone to school and those who couldn't go to school.
So should we scrap education?
Because of the nature of educational system.
So should we scrap our education?
No.
So why are we trying to take more children out of school?
No. My point is, I'm trying to lay a foundation. Number one, most of the people you are talking to in government, their children are not in those public schools. So the threat of your strike makes no sense to them. Because we find ourselves in a situation where if it's not affecting me directly, right, it doesn't make any point. So ASO should also realize, because I know too many ASO members who have intentionally refused their children attending public schools, public universities. Most of the ASO members, their children are in private universities. It's the truth. But we can't come here and begin to mention their names. So sometimes it looks as if we can destroy the system. We can hold the system to ransom, simply because we will not be affected so much.
Who is actually damaging the system
our children
now? Is it ASU or the federal government?
Let me come. ASU and federal government.
Okay.
If the elephants are fighting, it's the grass that suffers. ASU is not a student. The federal government is not a student. So the people who are, I am speaking for the student, for the children. If I have my way, none of my child will go to federal school, because it's so frustrating and looks very hopeless. If you go to state universities right now, you can't hear about strike. Are they not same lecturers? Are they not also trained in the same way those who are in the universities? Before, when state universities
funded the same way, are they equipped the same way?
Before the state universities, had this no work, no pay, and the governors are intentional about it, that they used to join ASO strike, it was the same thing the way it is. But when governors sat down and said, you cannot carry our problem and join with the federal government problem, that was when our state universities began to work well. Because at that point, the state governor said, it's not federal government that is funding you. We are funding you. So why will you now transfer aggression because you are in a union? That was how strike in state universities ceased. So I want to believe that the same measure that the state universities are now working with, that model should be applied to the federal universities.
No work, no pay.
No work, no pay.
But is it not applied in the federal? Is that not part of the demands that they have?
ASO can be requesting for money when you know there was a policy of no work, no pay. It's part of the spoil of war.
So how is that changing the system? That's what I'm asking you.
That's
now
why
the federal government has that, which you said I've recommended that it will help put an end to this in-season strike. But that is already it's already in place right now. And that's even one of the reasons they are saying they'll go on strike.
You see, federal government looks as if it's nobody. At the various states, the state governors were intentional about it. Some lecturers were sacked. The highest you could do is to go to court.
One of the reasons ASU are giving an ultimatum now is because most of their members in some universities have been sacked.
Of course, I'm sure they have taken the matter to court. And if they have not, I encourage ASU to take the matter to court.
Now, let's also look at the agreement since 2009. What is going on with the federal government keeping its part to the agreement? You
see, when you have an agreement and the person has not kept to that agreement, you have options, to pursue the breach of contracts. I don't think if ASO mean well for our children, our students, that it is out of place for ASO to go to court. If you have an agreement, a valid agreement with the federal government that they have breached, you can go to court, not to suffocate the children. So my option is ASO, while I encourage federal government to meet the agreement because it's moral. If I have an agreement with you I should be able to keep to my words. If there's any reason why I cannot keep to my words, I should be able to respectfully call you back, right? My brothers, my sisters, we made this agreement thinking that we can honor it. But these are the challenges that we are having. Can we review it? I think ASO will not be so wicked to say that we cannot review this agreement. So I feel that the way Mr. President have come up openly to say, forgive us of our indebtedness. The federal government can also meet us and say, please, forgive us for the breach of this agreement. We cannot meet up to this agreement. Can we review it and come up with something workable? I think ASO should not be angry to renegotiate. But if the federal government have got a policy to say, no work, no pay, and you are aware, when you fight, know that there will be spoil of war. The strike also affected the federal government, affected our children. So if it has effect on our students and upon the federal government, ASU members too, you should share from the fights. Forget about that no work, no pay. If you did not work for that period of time, how do you expect salary? Is it moral?
All right.
So I think that ASU should not be asking for that no work, no, that payment that it should not work. But then on the issue of funding the university system, I know the federal government have been releasing some funds, but it may not be enough. They are talking about more funding. I don't think there's any university that will say that they do not get resources from federal government, you know, in each of their academic calendar.
No pay agreements that they are asking the federal government to, the payments they're asking federal governments to make. The federal government had a dialogue with ASU, told ASU that they would make that payment. But then after the stipulated time, it still wasn't made. And then ASU had to come back and say, where's the money you said you give us? But now let's move on to the next story. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has launched an investigation into allegations that some of its officers accepted 15 million naira bribe from Idris Okune, known as Bobrisky, to drop money laundering charges. The investigation, initiated by EFCC Chairman Ola Olukoyede, follows a viral video of Martins Vincent Ose, that's a very dark man, that he made against Bobrisky. Now, Dele Oyewole, EFCC head of media publicity, confirmed the probe and invited both Bobrisky and Very Dark Man to assist in the investigation. EFCC assured the public of a thorough investigation, emphasizing its commitment to transparency and integrity in addressing the allegations. If we had enough time on our hands, we would have played the video of when Very Dark Man was actually making this allegation. He did not just come out to make allegations, he played the voice note of Bobrisky when Bobrisky was telling someone, according to the allegation, that he was not in prison. He was in a building, in an apartment close to the prison. In fact, his godfather called one person and the other person called the other person, and they made provision for him to stay outside the prison. And he was told within the 6 months to make sure he doesn't come out so that nobody sees him. That's one. Two, you should make sure it does not go online so that nobody knows he's not in prison. And then he also talked about the reason they brought up the spraying, the naira abuse charge. It was because they had to drop the money laundering charge after he had paid 15 million naira. And so they just had to come up with something which was the naira abuse. Okay, let's hold you up for naira abuse. Now these are the allegations on ground, and Twitter has been burning hot for some days now. Let's get your thoughts on this story.
Well, I do not expect anything strange, because that word Bobrisky means that dealing with Bob is a risky activities. And I equally want to feel that it's part of the riskiness in their dealings. Again, I will want to appreciate the EFCC for being, you know, apt in response. And then the author of that claim has been invited, and also the accused has also been invited to help them
with the investigation.
So let us wait and see the result of the investigation. You know, Nigerians, most people are very, very untruthful. Most people are very, very arrogant. Oh, how can they keep me in the prison? maybe in trying to return back his public respect and image, he may have made that assertion and claim. You know, so
he's saying that was not his voice. So this is not even him saying.
Okay, so which means
I said it out of joy, or I was lying, or something.
So I think the investigation will tell Nigerians who is telling the truth or who is trying to tell lies. And I believe that EFCC in no distant time would give us the reports. And
another reason this is hot out there is because of the names that were mentioned. Now, from that voice note, you hear names like Falz the bad guy being mentioned. You hear names like Femi Falana, which is Falz's father, being mentioned as part of the whole scandal that's going on currently. And you know that these are individuals that Nigerians look up to, especially when you talk about Femi
Falana. Anything can happen in Nigeria, and especially when it looks as if our elder statesman, when he does well, I commend him, and when he doesn't do well, I also said, Daddy, you didn't say well this time, because he has been on the field of talking and speaking when government have not done well. It's possible that government may have looked for an avenue to run down his voice or his reputation. Some people in government, if I will use that word, not government in general anyway, it's possible because politics is being played in everything in our country. So, but that's not to say is the truth. But I'm always saying that I don't believe that our revered legal luminary, Papa Femi Falana, SAN, will be involved in such kind of deals. So I want to pray and encourage the economic and financial crime to ensure that Nigerians comes to know the truth, because of, in quotes, the rival people that have been accused, and then the integrity of the EFCC is challenged.
Yes.
And I believe that EFCC will not take it lightly. They will give Nigerians the truthfulness of that statement.
But how do we even get Nigerians to really trust the system anymore? Like, how do we put an end, or how do we curb the incessant cases of corruption that we keep hearing about? Because this is not really the first time. This story, although it's new, right? But this is not news to a lot of Nigerians, because time and time again, we keep hearing that money changed hands when somebody went in or somebody went out. Some cases we hear about probing, and then later we don't hear those cases anymore. Seems like it's been swept under the carpet.
No.
And when people are asking, we don't hear anything about it.
You see, most times bringing up issues in the media is expensive. And most times too, people following up matters are not cheap.
So it was expensive when...
No. You see,
when it's time to give us updates, it's expensive. But when it was time to tell us, oh, you are probing them, it wasn't expensive.
Let me also mention here. When a matter is in courts, the law bars you from talking about them, so that it will not amount to contempt of court. Now, when a matter is in courts, the court proceedings, is a process. Our judicial system most times is not very fast. So if a matter is still in court, you may not really hear much about it.
We hear about it.
Now,
even when it's in court, the law does not stop the media from carrying a case that is in court.
No.
The law does not stop the media from giving updates on a case that is in court.
I'm coming.
So when you're making that statement of talking about it, it's different from the media carrying it.
That's what I'm saying now. I'm talking about the source. Of course, if you talk about investigative journalism, you also have the right, the privilege to go to the courts to ask of the situation of the matter.
Individuals should
No. As a media.
So individuals should go to the court to ask questions. The media is not carrying it. No media organization is carrying it. So it's in the media space, and the media decided not to carry. So you're saying the updates we don't get is from the media that we don't get.
Ambassador,
thank you so much. No, you have have made your point.
No, let me
Time's no longer on our side. We would have continued that conversation, but I see my time ticking in seconds.
No problem.
Thank you so much for your thoughts on the show today. I'm making brief for
Thank
all
you.
the people you made brief for today.
The journalists should ensure that they go get information.
Big thanks to you for being a part of this interesting conversation. We'll do this again tomorrow.
Let's believe in Nigeria. Nigeria will get better.
Of course, Nigeria will get better.
Let's respect our leaders and continue to support them.
All right.
Our leaders do well. Nigerians are suffering.
Okay. All right. Later, you tell us the position you're coming out for so we can prepare ourselves to vote for you. Stay connected with us on all of our ITN socials on Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, on Instagram and TikTok at Atlantic TV Network 1, and on X at Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website at www.atlanticnetwork.tv. Always remember that peace and unity are the pathways to progress, like Ambassador has said. I am Enidoye Jackson. It has been an interesting time. Coming up next is Open Conversation. Stay with us on ATN.
The people of Maiduguri need your help. A catastrophic flood has engulfed the city, leaving over 1 million residents stranded and fighting for survival. Entire communities are submerged, with people trapped inside homes and on rooftops cut off from food, clean drinking water and essential supplies.